Happy Wine Wednesday, everyone. Hope you're having a fabulous day, week, month. Hope your tanks are amazing. I'm sipping on some Chardonnay. Let me know in the comments what you're sipping on. I have Ray, Holly, and Cheryl with me. Everybody's back this week except for Dan. He's still busy. But just a couple of announcements before we get to chatting. Okay, yeah. So the reason it looks kind of funny is because I didn't have time to go get the computer fixed and the camera fixed. So it looks a little funny behind me, but bottom line is I'm trying to move. My girls are going to kill each other. I have twins and they're sharing a room still, and they're 15 and they're going to kill each other. So we've been house shopping. So I've been running around all week looking at houses, found my dream home. Everyone, please cross your fingers that I get this house because I love it. And so anyways, that I've been kind of busy. The char chamber is still doing exceptional. I've got a few more tweaks, edits to the video, and then I'll get that up this week for sure. And then he still hasn't had the baby, so the other one's still waiting to be used. But I'm going to use the second char chamber in the fry tub, and I don't even think I'm going to do tubs. I know that skews my results as far as it's best to do in a tub, but I think I'm just going to do 2 tanks, because of the fact that I want to see the difference between the char chambers. So I'm going to split them up, right? So any thoughts on that, you guys, so far? You think that would be okay for the first batch of fry that probably aren't going to do well anyway, Cheryl?
Kelly, are you using the round tubs? Right.
No, so that's what I'm saying is I've already taken all that stuff down a year ago or whatever. So instead of setting it all back up for the first batch that usually isn't great anyways, I figured I'm not going to concentrate on I can't even think of the word, on success or the amount of fry that I'm able to raise. I'm more going to concentrate on, hey Chimp, what's up? Glad to see you stop by. What's going on with you? Anyways, sorry, I'm jumping around. But since I don't have the tub set up yet, since it's the first batch of fry, instead of concentrating on the number of fry I keep alive or whatever, I'm going to concentrate on, do they do better in the char chamber tank versus the non-char chamber tank? And I'm going to make this the same. But as soon as they get to having Seahorse,
I will fine. I mean, I raised over 20 in 10-gallon tank. Exactly. And move, just keeping them cool. You know what you're doing. So especially since it's first batch, a lot of times they're small batches and they're pretty weak anyway. So I say go.
Sorry. The real goal will be to see the difference in the quality of water and just I'll try to make it really even because, especially usually you've got some fry that start growing and eating and puffing up right away. And then you've got some that are kind of weaker. So I'm going to try to make this, not weak and strong, but totally equal. I'm going to try. I'm not a scientist, but I'm going to try. That chart. But
I'd never say that it was going to be problematic, being that all the reed I fry that I raised were raised in 4-liter wide mouth jars. I had a dozen of them, and I'd start off with maybe 150 in each jar, and then as you start culling and some of them dying off, then you got less in each jar. And sometimes I'd have to move some from one jar to another if lost too many in some. But until they were already on to frozen food, they stayed in those jars. From them, I moved them over.
That's amazing.
I have a question, though, Cheryl. Why is your face in a cloud with a clouded seahorse behind that moves when your head moves?
I have no idea. That just popped up today. And it's not even my yard or anything else. So I have no knowledge. I don't know where it came from. I obviously clicked on something.
It's a background, yeah. But your wall is still showing through a little bit, and that's why we see the seahorse sculpture behind her, because she has them on the wall.
It's really kind of. I tried to correct it before.
It's very cool.
I'm going to have to figure out what in the heck. What did I click on that I couldn't?
Yeah, we're just glad to have you back, so don't worry.
Yeah. Well, one things that I found with fry is the larger space you can give them, as long as you can maintain a high density of prey for them, they're going to do much better because you can keep the tank sterile. I went from when I first started, I went from using 2 gallon tanks for fry.
Hmm.
I'm sorry, 10 gallon tanks in my kitchen on my kitchen cabinets.
Right.
And since then, my typical nursery system now runs about 70 gallons. Protein skimmer rated for 180 gallons. Uh, UV sterilizer, K1 media, etc.
Right.
And the
Well,
difference is, yeah, I mean, the difference is huge
mhm.
because I can raise large numbers of fry, even different species, because of my ability now to maintain stable water parameters.
No,
That's something.
sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Now, I have a
it's
question though for you, Cheryl, about like a lot of times, well, in my experience, when my one seahorse that the only one that ever had fry, when he was having fry, a lot of his batches were very small. Like we're talking about like 20 or less. So in
No.
that case, would you even bother putting them in a huge fry tub like that? Or would you do like a 20-gallon or a 10-gallon? Like, what are your thoughts on that when they have a small batch? Because if just the fry tub seems huge for
Too much
when
that.
water.
when you're
Well,
getting that few fry, you've got a problem with the pair and the condition of the pair. They're not conditioned to produce what you would expect. And again, looking just at Erectus, you're anticipating, at least from my perspective, at least 500 plus fry. And when I start seeing smaller fry, one thing that's going to happen is how old is the pair? How well established are they? What is their condition? And if they're producing smaller broods, I'm thinking I've got a problem with the pair. The pair is not in the prime. And Ray,
right. I want to say, Amy, thank you so much for stopping by. I need to get in that message with you. And hi, Shyla. I think I already said hi to Chimp. Okay. Ray, what did you say? You said something in response, didn't you?
If I've only got 20, boy, I'd be doing small because
Yeah.
to do proper water maintenance and put them in a big tub, that's just a ridiculous amount of work and waste of water.
Mhm.
Agreed. And that's why I was saying first of all, I wanted to test out the char chamber, because that was the whole
Yeah.
purpose to getting it.
Yeah.
I've got one in the all-in-one already, and a video coming on that. But then the second one, I'm going to. If you just joined us, I saw some new people just joined. I'm basically going to have 2 tanks, not the tubs, but 2 tanks for this first batch of fry, and one's going to have the char chamber, and one is not. And then they're going to get this. Just going to
I
see.
think that makes sense then to me because I mean my male that had the fry that I raised, I mean he started having fry at basically 5 or 6 months old. So yeah, new pair, not very many. His biggest batch of fry finally was like about 160.
Mm.
And that was his 4th, 5th batch. Other than that, like 60, 40, 20, lower amounts of fry. So I I I think that's probably gonna be good for you. And then we can see how the char chambers,
yeah,
work against not. I think that's
Yeah,
that's a good way to
it'll be a fun experiment. And
to see the
Cheryl, for the
I'll
record,
be honest with you.
wait. I just want to say to you real quick, I agree with you, everything you said 100%. Not only about if a pair is only producing 20, maybe you want to look at a different pair, or maybe they're not conditioned. And I'd love to hear what your suggestion would be to condition them. But I also agree with having the fry tubs. I'm just saying I'm not going to set it up for this first batch because I want to run this experiment. If he
Yeah.
continues more and more fry, I'm going to set it up.
Yeah. Then it makes
The thing is with raising fry is one, the size of the male. My biggest, largest, and most prolific male was over pushing 9 inches tall, and I got him from Draco Marine as a mature male. And he mated with a female that I raised that was a Northern Erectus, and they produced fry that were over the top. But it was the condition of the adults that made the difference.
So Cheryl,
Ultimately.
in Holly, she was saying he was only like 6 months old, so he was a youngin. So you're just saying
too
wait
young.
until they grow up to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like breeders will tell you up front. When young pairs, they don't even bother to try to grow them out. They don't even,
Right.
because it's
No, I know,
not
and I know
economical.
there's other tricks that commercial breeders have for conditioning that they never really share with us. But I mean, they've got a lot of tricks about feeding multiple different feeds, and and enrichments, and also
Well,
conditioning is
be
the
honest
thing.
with
They actually condition.
I'll be honest with you. Best thing you can do with newborn fry, if you can do it, is culture copepods. Screw the brine shrimp. They lack the
Really?
HUFA profile that are essential for growth and development in seahorses, because the seahorses do not have a true stomach, and therefore they cannot digest a lot of this stuff. Take the set. I've actually done experiments on this. Uh, Same pair, same fry. Basically feed one tub copepods and another tub baby brine shrimp. And I'm talking enriched brine shrimp. I'm not talking that newly hatched. And there's a huge difference in the rate of development because of the lipid profile in the copepods.
Absolutely. I got to get Dan in here. I'd love to hear his thoughts on it, because he's always
I got lucky. I mean, when the first batch that I was able to have survive, which was Sandy's second batch, I had no food ready as first batch. I lost them all, and they were weak and small anyway. Now that I have, more background knowledge from you guys, they probably wouldn't have made it anyway. But his second batch, I got 5 survivors, and out of a batch, I think around 20. And I started them with copepods because I had to get the brine shrimp going. And they actually got a mix of, copepods and the baby brine shrimp when I was growing them. And I raised them. I started them out actually because I didn't know, like Cheryl says, that the more space they would have done better. So I didn't start them in a 10-gallon. They were in a little 2-gallon octagon thing. And gradually,
don't forget, Ray used jars.
Yeah, so I mean, I just kept them clean. I transferred water back and forth and gave them fresh, clean water and a lot of food. And then I learned from you guys actually about the peroxide. That was another thing, was cleaning up their food with peroxide, the baby brine shrimp, that I didn't know about. And once I started doing that, I stopped losing fry as soon as I started doing that. So it had a huge.
Real quick, Cheryl, I got 3 things to say before people leave. Take off. First of all of this talk about fry reminds me of 2 things. Number 1, we got to get Seahorse Corner back in here to update us on the sea shed. I know stuff, but I want to know how they're doing, and how she's doing, and how the sea shed is. So we're calling on you. We want you to come and do an episode. Text me and let me know when's good. And then I will bug Dan. I hate bugging him because he's really busy, but I'm going to bug him and see if maybe next week he can at least come. If not,
it's okay.
Do ask for first part 3, because that's just, I know sometimes we'll say stuff on this channel like Holly says, well, I learned about using peroxide to clean up the food. And some people are probably like, huh? What is that? Peroxide food? What?
Yeah.
So, and Dan is
Made it
all
huge
that. What, Cheryl?
I can call Dan. Not a problem. We can talk
No.
about stealing ambulances together.
Right. But I mean, come on the show and share. Yeah. But, and what was the third thing I was going to say? Just that obviously it can be done while having tubs with a water and a skimmer and a UV and all of the other stuff, food and all that. There's so many things that go into it, but having the tubs and the great sump with all the equipment in it is, of course, likely the best way to the commercial guys do it. But Holly and Ray are both, and me are both, the fact that, you know, it can be done different ways with transferring tanks.
Well, and just knowing what they need and what you need to do to achieve that. There's so many different ways of achieving that.
Right.
And
well, you're right, but also
back to what Cheryl said. When I first joined 2 years ago, it was when I had fry starting to come.
Right.
And yeah, Ray, I remember Ray was the one that told me you need to use peroxide to clean up their food. And it made the biggest difference in the world. That and the other thing was the formalin. Those two things were the key in my case.
Oh,
and
speaking of which, in case you guys forgot, I dumped my formalin on accident, so I need to get some more. I said that. The third thing I was going to say, because we keep jumping around, guys, is that, oh my gosh, now I'm going to lose it. Oh, it's really easy to sit here and talk about fry and get hundreds, and if you have fry tubs, it'll work. Just don't forget, like I did, the second you become successful, then you have 100 seahorses. Now, I had to put up a 90-gallon tank. I had to put up a 90-gallon tank like on the fly, because that's when I would lose my fry weaning, because I'm not good at love. So I did keep giving them, live feeds instead of making transfer onto frozen. And so they weren't getting enough, good stuff from the even enriched Artemia, as Cheryl's saying. And then the second time would be started really truly overcrowding. Dan talks about density and how many, he has a calculation like how many seahorses per gallon and all this other craziness. I just didn't realize, even though this works for the first 2 months, once they start going on frozen and they're big, I had to set up a 90-gallon. But going back to what Cheryl said too,
I went through a lot of salt
on whether
water.
Wait, guys, we're all talking.
Yeah.
It's just
it's like Rachel said,
versus Artemia that is enriched. I would love to dive into more of that conversation. Now I apologize, Holly.
I was just saying the way it worked for me is I did a hell of a lot of water changes. I went through a lot of salt because I didn't have the big grow out tank yet when my first batches came along. So I was using a 29-gallon regular tank with the filter in the hood. Yes, with the filter that goes around and around, the bio wheel. That's what I have. Freshwater tank was in there. There were
how many seahorses?
My 29-gallon tanks are all Sumps.
The 20 of them started out in that one before I got yours started out in that one. The one that I sent to you. So they were in a 29-gallon tank that I had to do like 100% water change practically every other day because they didn't have adequate filtration. But I kept them alive by giving them fresh, clean water all the time. And it cost me a fortune.
Well, and
but it's doable. Like I said, it's doable. It's just achieving what they need any way you can do it.
Yeah. Well, do you guys know ever ended up setting up? Do we know if Heather ever set up tub? Is she, because tanks too.
She's setting them up. Yeah, she's
Okay.
setting them up now. I noticed she commented last week that she lost 30 of them over like unclean tank conditions, like she didn't get the tank cleaned in time or something, so she lost a batch of
Bacterial.
30
It was bacterial.
because she's having
Probably
back to
bacterial.
back fry, so I think she's struggling she's trying to get the fry tubs together, but meanwhile she keeps having fry to raise.
Yep.
And
It gets hectic.
yeah, so that's challenging. And yeah, so I mean, thankfully I don't have any fry I'm raising right now. I did change out my display tank to artificial decor today. I shared a couple videos on your Wine Wednesday chat. So they're there. So they're doing good with that so far. They spent the day in a bucket while I was doing all that. And I only have one peppermint shrimp is MIA.
Uh-oh.
And it's the same one that went MIA yesterday and all of a sudden turned up. So I don't know if it's going to turn up in a filter socket, but I checked all the rocks. It took me a while to go through the sand. I don't think it was it might be in the overflow box and might show up in the filter sock eventually. I don't know, but it wasn't around this morning when I was catching everybody.
So you're still missing one pep?
Well, it's not still missing. It turned up yesterday and then went disappearing again.
That's what it is. Real quick, I know Cheryl wants to talk, but let me go ahead and share your video. Show how pretty and nice a tank that's all artificial can be. Is that okay with you if I share it?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, here we go. And look at that. Wait, and there's one more that kind of is more out, I think.
Yeah, these are one of the pairs having dinner together after. So yeah, they adjusted pretty quickly. They spent the day in a bucket and they were cool with it. And then once I had everything set up and the water was cleared up pretty good, because I changed out all the water in the tank, but I left the water in the sump, right? So basically it's all new water in the tank that I just made today. So
looks
I
nice.
put all this stuff in, I let it clear out, and then I put the Seahorses back in, and then all the other things, the cleanup crew and my goby went back in.
Holly, I got a question for you. I know you're
Sure.
rebuilding, doing a lot of stuff, and doing a tremendous amount of work with them. On your nursery systems, what size are they, and how much water volume do you go through, and what other equipment are you using on them?
Well, I don't have any nursery systems now because I'm not having any fry. And seriously, what I raised, these, like the Seahorse on the right, Sadie is one of the ones I raised. She's almost 2 years old. She'll be 2 years old in July. But I raised my baby seahorses in 10-gallon tanks. They started out when they were tiny fry. I have a little 2-gallon tank. And when they're tiny, I put them in there, and then I moved them. As I learned from you guys, they do better with more water, but they still need to keep the food density. So I never went over 10-gallon in the beginning. And then I moved them to a 12-gallon. And when they were a few inches, like maybe 2 going on 3 inches, they moved to the 29-gallon tank, where I just did a lot of water changes. I just did a lot of cleaning. It was labor intensive more than anything because I don't have systems. But
Ray's
they were
interesting.
regular fish tanks, and then eventually I set up my grow out tanks, which I had, the 85 gallon that busted water everywhere.
Right.
And now they're in a 75 gallon tank. But they have that tank now. There's a sump and a skimmer, and it's an actual regular system now. But prior to that, the fry I raised, they weren't really raised in systems. They were raised in little tanks with an air stone.
Okay.
That's all.
The reason I'm asking is
I about what Holly just said for Cheryl and or Ray, because I honestly can't remember. I know we've talked about this before, but Holly made a good point about when you go to large systems like Cheryl, your 75 or tubs that, my fry system tubs, I had two 20-gallon tubs and they both fed down into a sump. And in the sump, I had all the equipment and stuff, but I couldn't even tell you how much water volume that really. But so I'm getting a question, sorry. But a point that when you're in a smaller tank, the food is more available because it's, kept in a smaller, and as you go into bigger tanks, you have to keep up the food volume. So how much per gallon, or is it per Seahorse? How do you figure out how much Copa Artemia to feed? And does it matter?
I will add food, and I will small amount. I will wait and see how much is gone within 5 to 10 minutes, and then I will add. I'm talking about fry.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Then I will add another small amount because the thing is, I don't want brine shrimp sitting in a nursery tank. I don't want them in there.
Well, not only that, but if they're enriched and they don't eat them right away, the enrichment only lasts. Right? I mean,
true, and that's one of the reasons why
depends on how you're doing it.
Yeah, my nursery systems basically are self-cleaning. They're tubs, and anything that is in that tank that floats is going to be gone in a very short period of time. And so I just have to go in and pull out the filter socks and change out my filter socks, which works very well.
But you definitely wouldn't want to overfeed. I like your idea of doing small amounts, and I want to hear Ray's answer about do it, but you wouldn't want to overfeed because that's a dang waste. I mean, hatching these Artemia constantly, or even copepod called, they go quick. It sucks when you feel like you've wasted a bunch, right?
No. The thing is, I also prefer feeding copepods to feeding.
You said that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's interesting way to dive into that more.
They had the HUFA profile that saltwater fish need.
And what species is working for you, Cheryl?
I'm sorry?
What species? What's pod?
I prefer the Cyclops panamensis.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. I've used them for years. They are very prolific. They're very easy to raise. And I mean, even for Erectus, to be honest, I would recommend using those rather than brine shrimp.
Wow.
Seriously.
That's really interesting. Ray, I want your take on that. And then what you mean about it depends on how you do it.
Well, before I built the muck bucket round tubs, I did that for Erectus. But prior to that, the only ones I was raising for many years were reedi. They're in these 4-liter jugs, 12 of them sitting on a shelf. And
my hat to you, sir.
I would put in the enriched brine shrimp. They're enriched with Algamac 3050. I would also put spirulina and pardon me, it wasn't spirulina, it was green water, the
Like
what's the
nano.
basic green algae? Nano.
Yeah.
I would put nano in there, but I would also put more Coromex in there.
Mm.
Well, I could leave them in all day long, and I actually left them in overnight as well. Now they were lit 24/7. The lighting would keep the activity going for the live nano, and that would help if there was any buildup of ammonia at all. The nano would take care of it. Plus, they were feeding on the nano and the Chloromex, or Chloromex, the Algamac,
Mm-hmm.
and so the brine were staying nutritious. They weren't being depleted.
Gotcha. So wait, real
Um,
quick, I just want to ask. So you're saying that you had in these, you were literally raising the Artemia and the fry together in green water. Is that
yes,
right, or do I have it wrong?
Well, what
but
he was doing
I
was
would change it out every day though.
yeah,
Okay, gotcha.
he was enriching
But they'd be in it for
the
24 hours.
rice with Fido.
So Ray, you said you changed it out every 24 hours. Did you just put them in like a new jar or whatever with new water or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I'd put them in another, if I had all the containers in use. There were times, sometimes I had a few jars extra because I didn't have that many fry. But when I got all 12 bottles on the go, I would put them in another container, then clean out the container, bleach it, rinse it, and then put them back in with new water, like totally new water and total new food, new enrichment, new nano, and again back on the shelf, lit 24/7. So they never had any dark, and it worked fine. The only water movement is open-ended airline.
Wow. I mean, I know people have done it that way. It's just incredible to me. I can't. I mean, it makes sense. It would just,
Yeah.
it's
Just give them what they need. Like I say,
Yeah.
once you know what they need, however you achieve that.
Right.
With the erectus, though, I did change. I went to the muck buckets, and then I went to multiple feedings in a day, and I never actually put the 30/50 in the fry rearing tanks. But the brine shrimp were enriched before they went in there. Now, mind you, I didn't have copepods when I first started rearing reed eye, and brine shrimp newborn are too big for them at that point. And I was using rotifers, again,
Really?
enriched the same way that I enrich the brine shrimp plate. And everybody at the time told me there's no way I could do it. That's okay. They also told me that I had to harvest the food. What did I just mention?
Rotifers.
The rotifers. Yeah,
You
rotifers.
said you always had to harvest some every day or the culture would crash. Well, I had them in 3 5-gallon water balls that were inverted. And if I didn't have fry, I just let them keep on growing, kept feeding them. And sure, you'd get some die off. And even with rotifers do have an exoskeleton too. So you get the crap that settles down the bottom. So you clean it out once in a while. But I never bothered harvesting any to try and keep the cultures going because they grew too damn well anyway.
That's so funny to show if something's working for you, come share it with us. But I'm never going to be the person to tell you you've got to do it this way because if it's working for you.
See, I didn't know that you weren't supposed to do it that way until I started doing it, and then other people found out I was doing it. They told me it was wrong.
Whatever works.
You're like, look, it's yours.
Ray, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
When you were, I know that you worked with reed eye quite extensively and had a lot of success with them. My question is, were you feeding them basically enriched brine shrimp, or were you feeding them copepods? How were you
Well, when I
getting
first started,
past
I
that?
didn't have any copepods. I fed them enriched rotifers for the
Okay.
first few days. I don't remember now exactly whether it was 3 to 5 days or so on. And then I switched over San Fran brine shrimp, which are a bit smaller than Great
Yeah.
Lakes,
Yeah.
and then switched to Great Lakes. That was in this over a span of little over a week, say 12 to 14 days.
Uh-huh.
And
So basically, your first food then was enriched rotifers.
right, once I had the copepods going, I had 3 different cultures going.
Right.
And I can't even remember the names now. Like when you have cognitive impairment, you can't get words out.
Oh, you're doing
Um,
great.
anyway, I had 3 different types, but there was one that was more predominant. Not
Yeah, I
tigerpod.
know which one you're talking about.
It's
I can't remember the off the top of
yeah.
my head either.
Well,
Anyway,
I'm sorry.
once I had the copepods, then at first I was using the copepods plus the rotifers, and then switching to the San Fran and then on to the Great Lakes. So it was procedure there. But eventually I stopped doing the rotifers because I was selling so much to clownfish breeding people that and I had sufficient copepods to take me through the first few days. Even when I had those
Yeah.
trays going, I had 3 15-liter trays going, and even that would only get me enough built up to handle that initial period, 3 or 4 days, and then I'd be pretty well depleted at that point because these darn fry, they eat that stuff up so fast,
Oh, I know.
and they eat so much of it.
I was
Do
curious.
you remember
Curious,
you were
Cheryl.
using a Panamensis pods or which pods you were using?
I never used
Because
Panamensis. Tisbe was my
Newer.
main one.
you were using Tisbe's?
Yeah, that was the main one. Then there was 2 others, but I can't think of the name right now.
Yeah, I know which ones you were using. The thing is,
Hey,
I
Cheryl,
found my best
Cheryl,
success.
sorry, you talk and then I will. Go ahead.
Okay. I found my best success was using the A. panamensis pods because the newborns are very tiny and work very well for the small, very tiny pelagic species. And they actually get a decent size as they mature. Again, they're small, but they make a great food, even the pregnant females, for slightly larger seahorse fry.
Yeah.
And I've had really good success with those. And I know Chad Clayton is,
Just gonna
yeah,
say, shout out
he
Clinton. He's got the
makes
Panamensis.
A Panamensis, but I got involved
Yes.
with him before he became the A Panamensis pods.
He's now. If you,
Just throwing, I've
I know
had
Cheryl, you were.
really,
He is called the Copa God, and I actually did interviews
yeah,
with him when I first started doing interviews. So it's like two or three parts. It was very long because it was like one of the first interviews I did. There was so much we could learn from him. It's still valuable information, even though the videos aren't great. I'll try to learn more done because it's still really good info about him and the company and the copepods and the fermenses. Go ahead, Cheryl.
I'll give you an example. I placed an order with Reef Nutrition, and Chad calls me and says, "What size do you need, and what level of growth in the pods that you're ordering?" And he called me exactly what I did and sent it to me. That is customer care.
Oh yeah, he's
I got,
amazing. And oh, really, I have a question for Cheryl, but I wanted to mention getting to say these things at the beginning. But I got an email about the Seahorse and Pipefish event in Macna, which is in a couple months. So on the lookout for. I just wanted to throw it out there that Seahorse and Pipefish and Women in Reefing again at this upcoming Macna. So and this one will be in person. So, but I'm sure I'll share something online. But just watch for those posts. But Cheryl, I was curious. Okay, sorry, I was trying to do something else.
It's
So
okay.
with
Deep
copepods,
breaths. Deep breaths. Yes.
with copepods, you don't need. I understand enrich them because they have the lipids and all the stuff that the seahorses already
Correct.
need. But
Technically, yeah.
does it not work that way because you need the little guys that soak it in?
Thing is, when I'm culturing, basically, I'm not just buying copepods. I'm culturing copepods.
Mhm.
So I'm enriching them with live Fido and everything else that I can do. And so when I get ready to feed them out, I've got a very highly nutritious food source for neonatal fry.
Mhm.
And it's not necessary with like erectus and some of the larger species, but when you're dealing with combs, engines, I mean, my God, engines are crazy to work with, and some of the iridae, etc., you need a smaller food source, particularly early on. And basically, what I have done in the past, is set up multiple tanks, one for little bitty newborns, and I actually built a system where I could put the adults in one area. The newborns would then be filtered down to the next, and then there would be another tank below that where I could house some of my grow outs.
Yeah.
It's just it's me in my crazy design, but it works.
It works. It works. Okay. I am. We get to stuff and we go tonight. I think these Wine Wednesdays shorter though. So Holly, I'm just going to go around the room here. Or if we need to talk about something else, of course we can. And if you have any questions, put them in the comments. Because we're that's what we're here for, is to chat. But Holly, any other updates? I know you said you got the tank is completely artificial. I did want to ask you a question though, because I noticed of your seahorses eating thing. I mean, we talked endlessly bare bottom versus sand. The one I don't like about bare bottom tanks is that every little thing is seen. Like we've talked before about how when you're sucking out food, heck, you're doing a person just with that. In my case, I've got my seahorses pretty much trained where I know what they're going to eat. I put in the right amount, and then it's in. We're golden, right? But I have, and Ray, I'm sure has about this. I have snails in that tank, to clean up. I still have rocks in mine, and I see their crap every. They're like Ray always says, they're slithering, and I'm like, no, because then it looks like stuff. It's not anymore. And it's just like with rock, you guys know, even reefers know, like rock. I don't want to say it crumbles. It doesn't crumble. It does, but you know how if you move it for any reason, or if seahorse hitches on it or whatever, it does.
It
You know what I'm
traps
talking about?
arthritis, basically. It traps.
Well, that's why I ditched my live rock. I mean, it was getting disgusting, seriously. And the thing is, I've got Dandy. Like I shared a video of Dandy and yeah, his girlfriend Sadie eating dinner together. And it's cool now because what I did was I split the tank. I made part of it with a sand bottom and part of it not. Like where Dandy's dishes and where he normally hangs out, his favorite hitch and all, is now bare bottom. And so he ate his first meal there tonight. And just like I thought would happen, because I see it in my grow out tank is bare bottom. And what was happening in the display tank, they're not willing to snick food off the sand. And I can't say that I blame them. They probably have trouble seeing it. And plus, they don't want a mouthful of sand. So now that Dandy's little dish is in a clear area, with no sand, If he spills a little bit, he can eat it outside the dish because he can see it. So he was doing that. When I come to clean, I can see it. It's easier for me to siphon it away. And I've still got a cleanup crew. They're still there. And there's a split where there's sand. And the seahorses have dishes all around the tank.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
it's just already I can see it's going to be easier to manage. And if I miss a little bit, yeah, there's some cleanup crew there to help out, but it's going to be a lot easier for me to manage. The one thing that wasn't was I got some advice, and I think Heather had said you can run airlines into your decorations, into the caves to blow stuff out, right?
Yep.
Well, didn't work. I got the new pump, but it's got 6 outlets, right? So I ran airlines, cut them all, stuck them into the decorations. And at first, the airlines were all turned off because I showed you the other week it has the valves where you control airflow. Well, they were all turned off to begin with. And then when I turned it on, the air was so powerful that it literally blew the decorations out of place.
Oh,
And
no.
then I noticed air.
No, this is why you
in there.
need control on each
Wait a minute, let her
system.
finish.
So
Let her go.
air was getting trapped in there, and then the airlines would not stay in there. And no matter how I adjust them, then there's lines everywhere that are going to get knocked off because seahorses are going to swim and pull them out. You know, it was just such a PIA that I abandoned that idea. And I'm like, okay, well, I've got a cleanup crew and they like hanging out in the caves anyway. The seahorses eat, most of them, they're all eating from dishes, really. I'm not broadcasting food everywhere. So I have a pretty good control on their food anyway.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to worry about the darn airlines because they caused me so much. I had everything all set up and it was like an explosion. So everything's everywhere.
Wait.
Holly,
The pump
let me back up for a minute, Holly. Put in a rigid airline tube into
Go ahead, Cheryl.
one rock that diffuses the air bubbles. And it's easy to do, and it can be a permanent fixture, and it will make a world of difference for you.
Wait, what was that?
I missed
start earlier. I missed
Cheryl. I missed the first thing you said. I was saying something too. You said run, because she has a pump.
Rigid airline.
Well, I know, but I ran through the same problem she did, Holly, where the pump isn't to any level that's going to matter, and it
doesn't have to be.
It's totally adjustable, but it is a BITCH, I'll tell you that, and it's very powerful.
Well, that
do it right.
That tells me that we need to get Heather in here again.
It's easy, folks.
And it would be.
I need some common sense, girls.
But I'm gonna say I spent.
We're all talking at the same time, I think. Okay, Holly finished.
All right. So here's what I'm saying. Okay, so it took me all day to transfer everything to the tank. It's going to take me probably another half a day to adjust all the air lines and things to make it work inside the decorations. I could probably do it, but it'll be time consuming. I didn't have time to do it today. It's probably it's going to be as big a job as changing out the tank was, I could tell, because I've got 6 lines with 6 valves and decorations are, here, there, there's like 3 that I need to run lines to is all. But the lines that I ran today, did not work.
I hear you.
And
Okay,
I'm going to need to buy more airline because I had to move the pump to another location that I didn't originally plan on putting it. I'm going to have to do different lengths of airline than how I originally cut them because I'm not good with that kind of thing. It's going to take me a while to adjust them to the size. It's going to be hours. It's not going to be like an instant thing.
And now we're going to let Cheryl. Sorry. Now we're going to let Cheryl say what she was trying to say. Then we're going to let Ray. Wait a minute, Sean, hang on. I see Ray said, so we're going to let Rob. And then I'm going to try to remember all my questions so we don't talk over each other. But I do want to say very quickly, apologies. It just shows that people are now coming to this show, spam and kind of jerky comments from Seahorse. So, is kind of in this world because if they know us, they couldn't come and hate us. So if you see rude or respectful comment in any comment section and I noticed it yet, please let me know immediately. Text me, put it in the car, and me or one of the moderators will get rid of it because we don't like disrespect here. I apologize for interrupting you again. Cheryl, your turn, then Ray. So Cheryl, I think you were telling us and answering Holly's question because I had a problem with you keep the airline, rigid or not, under the thing because she's out of the way.
Because basically,
like you in there, and also what happened. Go.
I use rigid airlines.
Yes.
That I plug into an airline pump. It's obviously going to be adjustable. What I do then is it gives me total control of my air going to the tank. The problem is that most people try to go in with like a variety of different ideas, and you end up with air bubbles all over the place or no air bubbles at all. If you run a rigid tube, and to secure it against a piece of rock or in my case, it's going to be an artificial hitch type thing. And it really makes a huge difference because you can maintain good flow, good air circulation, and it takes 10 seconds to pick it up and clean it.
Right. Actually, and I'm going to go to Ray.
Secure it. I'm going to have to figure out a way to secure it because all the clips I have metal in them. I can't put them in the tank.
There's absolutely. There's absolutely.
I drop them into a piece of rock and use a rubber band.
Okay.
Bottom line.
There's absolutely the little plastic clips. We have tons of them. I can send you some if you need it. Those are and one that kind of really got me first up about the plastic clips because they're really airline holders, but you can use them for all sorts of stuff. I use curtain rods and stuff. But Ray, you were shaking. Why were you shaking your hand? And Cheryl was right. It's great to have an airline, but Holly's whole point was that she can't get the whole point was that Heather suggested good question to put the airline into the ornaments. Bubbles kind of keep the detritus from building up in there or anything bad from building up in there. And
how do you keep the bubbles from building up in there too?
The thing is pulled out are too strong. Guys, we can't talk over each other. Sorry, but and Ray.
Yeah, the thing is, I don't use ornaments in my tanks. It's basic artificial hitches, rock, and they're bare bottom. And I use a couple of power heads in there to increase the flow to reduce the detritus in it. And it's like one of my tanks. Okay, I took out, it's an older Oceanic 58-gallon tank. I literally spent several days taking out the overflow, putting in standpipes and sleeves to make it the tank that I wanted. I
Right.
build all my stuff myself, and it's
Right.
not
No.
like others. It's not like
No,
what
you do
most.
things right. I'm just trying to grill down because
Yeah.
you obviously don't deal with this because you don't do your tanks like that. But Ray, you were shaking your head and saying it doesn't have to be that difficult. Was that about and all that or no?
Yes. I don't use just airlines, but I do use airlines. I primarily have a lot of power heads that my water flow is probably in excess of 20 times. But when it comes to airlines, Holly has a 6 outlet gang valve. She can use one of those outlets to bleed the air off before she starts turning the air on and blowing everything to bejesus. But you can set the other
Can you tell us what you
lines.
mean by that?
Pardon?
Can you tell us
I
that?
get it. No, he says leave them off, but turn one on so it's bleeding out the air, and then adjust the rest,
And
right?
then start turning the others on, and eventually you can back off the one that you're bleeding air off until you've got them balanced on there without them blowing everything all to hell. And if the pump is
Nice.
putting out more than what you need, bleed it off, so then you're not blowing everything all around.
Nice.
Okay, so then now, Holly, I'm going to need you to teach me pump to do it one at a time because I don't understand.
Well, so what I did, because I didn't know, I hadn't talked to Ray first, so I kind of figured it out on my own because I didn't have anything in no creatures were in there. I was figuring out the airlines. So I didn't know they were turned off when I turned on the pump, but I had the airlines running to the things. So what I did was I started turning them on one by one. And like Ray said, Steph blew all the hell because all of a sudden all the air was coming out of one line. So,
well, I
did adjust them, but my airlines weren't right. And I think that's where Cheryl's advice comes to play is put rigid airline on the end of the Flexa line, and then it'll stay where I want it better. Because what I did was I had just the soft airline feeding into the decorations, and the way I was holding them there, because I don't have any like I said, I don't have any clips right now that don't have metal involved. So the way I was holding them in was I set the edge of the decoration on top of the line, but it wasn't enough to hold. They come out, and I could tell because the creatures moving around in there, they're going to knock them out. So I think one thing, what I use for rigid airline actually is plastic straws, drinking straws. And so I think, I'll try that maybe when I have time to mess with it, is feeding some plastic straw as rigid airline attached to them and just try to see if I can position them right. But I have to say, because the tank size, it's only a 55-gallon tank. And all those airlines coming in, it's 13 inches wide, the tank is.
Yeah.
So airlines everywhere like that is just in the way.
Let me back up for a minute. Message me tonight or tomorrow. I'm going to send you basically a place to buy the narrow rigid airline tubes.
Mhm.
They are 500% easier to work with. I'm not kidding you.
Well,
You
Cheryl, now you gotta message it to me so I can put it in the comment.
So we can all buy it. Yeah.
Well,
I have some that I got when I started out my copepods. The place that I got copepods from was selling rigid airline, but I have a little bit of it, but it was expensive. I don't know where to get it cheap. So if you could share,
you can get it cheap. You can get it through Amazon or Home Depot for a couple of bucks.
Awesome.
Literally.
Wow.
And
Okay.
it's one of those
Down
things
here,
where
the pet stores all have it.
What's
I'll even
that?
play around with them because I usually run a couple in each system. And if I've got somebody over here or I'm getting a little too much detritus in one spot, I can increase the flow or reduce the flow. And I can, it helps me, helps my circulation, it helps me keep everything clean. But it also maintains my pH where I want it.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Don't forget, pH is also, I'm in the upcoming video, I talk about how the char chamber and aqua char is helping me with pH. But real quick, before I forget, because I made myself big to show you, a few weeks
That's
ago.
my pump.
Yeah, a few weeks ago, a kind
It's the
person
same one
explained this
I
part to, hang on, Holly. A kind person explained this to me, and they explained a couple of other things to me, and this comes with this thingy, and I was trying to find one with less of these, dirty because I never used it. It's set in cobwebs, and because it was too strong. So my question is, what the heck are you talking about by turning one? What do you mean?
Well, you have to
If
have.
you leave one not connected, like leave the one on the end to where it's not connected to anything and adjust the valve to where more air's coming out of that one, then the others won't get as much.
What valve?
You have to put a valve in. You get
Oh,
little valve.
okay. That was a really easy answer, and I just missed it. I got it now. Okay. Duh. Got it. Okay.
You can buy cheap ones or you can buy good ones.
Yeah.
I got
By
you
the
now.
way, too, when you're setting up rigid airlines, you can literally stick them down in next to a piece of rock or a hitch. And if you want to reduce the impact, you can actually set them up very easily so they'll blow bubbles, little bubbles out of either side, or they'll only blow bubbles out of one side. They're very
So
easy.
I have a question, Cheryl, about, because the decorations I have, you saw, they're caves, because I have other stuff besides the seahorses that are liking the caves, my shrimp and goby. So one thing I noticed that when I turned on the air, it filled the decorations up with air. You don't want air stuck in there.
You got too much.
Is that an issue, or how do you avoid that if it is? If I'm feeding air into a decoration that's got hollow shapes inside, I don't want to fill it up of air bubbles.
Okay.
So
on your airline, basically your silicone airline, put a valve in there and you can adjust the flow going into that decoration.
Now, see, I disagree. I have
but do I really want air building up in there? Like, is that something I should worry about or no?
No,
I would worry
don't
about
worry
it, and
about
I would
it.
say it's the higher
I do it
flow
all
would
the
make
time.
okay, never mind. Go ahead.
You ought to see me adjusting flows in nurseries, depending on the size of the fry. And I run rigid airlines. Actually, I have overflow airlines on the actual nurseries. But I can do, I've got it down to a point where I can do major modifications anywhere in a tank.
Right, Cheryl.
You're not talking about stuff that's like a cave. I want to hear, Ray, do you have a comment on that? About, like, if you're putting air into something that's hollow, is there a danger of the air building up inside of it?
No. Your biggest problem with
it's going to build up.
Open. Yeah. The biggest problem
I don't know what you're talking about, though. Like anything I know that, how do I say? In my abs tank, I've got a big old, I guess, Greek columnar type of thing. And I've got air running through that, but there's escape holes for the water to run out of it. Plus, there's the weight of the unit itself would keep it from floating. But I don't know why you would have it in going into something that the air isn't going to escape out of.
That's what I'm worried about. So if I have something where I think the air won't escape, Like if it's got a hollow up at the top where air can build up, should I drill a hole up there for air to escape?
Why do you want something like that?
Because it was Heather's
If you've got something like that,
suggestion.
and you've got an airline going into it, it's going to draw water as well, which will also draw detritus into that cavity, and some of it will settle in there, and it's out of sight, and it's going to be food and bedding for bacteria.
That is, but that
So why-
Heather's
The
idea.
reason was because I have other animals in the tank, because I have peppermint shrimp and I have a goby and hermits. So I wanted to give them, some cave type space, for them to enjoy.
Don't put an airline in a cave.
Yeah, you don't need an airline in there for them.
Then that's okay. Then I don't really need to run the airlines because I have that cleanup crew and is going to take care of it. Probably,
Yeah.
I should have said.
What I've been trying is that the reason this whole topic came up is we suggested it because it's working for her. That's why it came up.
Yeah.
It works for me
do
too, but
run
I
an
never put it in
airline
any cave.
to help stabilize pH. Okay, that's one thing you need to do, and you need to monitor. It's not hard. It's not horrible, but it's something you need to. Something I do on a regular basis. But beyond that, the only thing you want the airline is doing is going to be help basically in moving water.
That was the whole thing. She was moving detritus.
Yeah, so I don't think I need to worry about the detritus because of the cleanup crew is going to take care of it. And that was why I was running the airline, because we had a conversation about, you need to worry about detritus buildup in places like that. So I was going to try to run the airline in to help with that. But the whole purpose of those spaces was for my cleanup crew folks to have, little caves and places to hang out. So it sounds like to me, I really don't worry about running the airline to those because I'm taking care of it through the cleanup crew and siphoning out the stuff that I see that's left. Is that the general consensus?
Thumbs up.
Because I do have now all those airlines they're running into my sump has plenty of air right now.
Okay. So. The thing is, when it becomes a whole different world when you're in a sump. Also, it's something everybody needs to think about because a sump increases your total water volume tremendously. And if it's set up right with a lot of rubble stuff like that, it's going to pretty much, it's like my skimmers. My skimmers on a 60 are rated for 180 gallon tanks. And it's just, it comes down to what kind of filtration you're going with.
So speaking of filtration, my K1 was finished cycling this morning, so I stuck it in the sump. What I discovered is the 2-liter bottle that I have the K1 in, my media reactor I made, is taller than the water in the sump. However, the way it's made, so the neck of the bottle is like this. It's a Coke. It's a 2-liter Coke bottle. Now, water level is about here. There is holes in the 2-liter bottle here and a hole in the cap up here. Now, the holes down here are underwater, so that it's churning inside the K1.
Right.
But the air hole at top where the cap is to the bottle is taller than the water level.
Yeah, that's the same way mine are set up. Yeah. The thing is, the only thing I would advise you to do is probably drill a couple more holes a little lower in the container.
Exactly. Okay. That's what Dan had me do. But I have a question real quick.
It's churning nice. It's
hang on.
I had to turn down the air because it was
one
like
second.
this.
Please let me ask you something. Please. One second, guys. I mean, we're okay. So for you, Holly, is I was interested because when I made mine, and I still have to get that video up, you guys, I'm sorry, but mine is inverted at the bottom. So you mentioned that the cap is above, because I'll just tell you real quick. Hang on. I could even show you if you needed me. But basically, mine is an inverted 1 liter bottle. It has the cap at the bottom, and right above, no cap. So what I did is I used this piece. I showed you guys before, but this K1 doesn't come out. You could use sponge or whatever. There's many different ways to do it online. But I will video up showing how I did it. But no cap, and then it has a little piece that comes from a sponge filter that doesn't let the thing come out, and then right above where the cap should go, a hole in the very neck, the side where the rigid airline goes in, and I put it halfway through into the K1. And then I had the same issue where at the top, which to me would be the bottom of the bottle, I had a bunch of holes. The water. Very top, bubbles would escape into the water, but then it was tall. And I went through the same thing. And Dan, I tried so many different. Finally said, put it in the tank where it's come out of the water. Hang on, where it's going to stand to the water. Even like if it's in the sump, you're cool, but if in the tank, you got to make sure even when your water changes, either you got to do water changes or you need to make sure it's under the water change level, and then put holes under the level in the container.
Exactly.
Holly, you have your cap at the top.
So it's so let's say this is it. Okay. So bottom of the 2 liter bottle.
I'm listening to you, but I'm going to go take mine.
I shared with you the video of how to make it. It was actually really simple, and I really love this guy's video over anybody else's. So the way it is, this is a 2 liter bottle, let's say. Okay. Now there's holes that I used a soldering iron all the way around the bottom of the bottle. And I fed my airline in through here. And there's little glass beads from the dollar store that hold it down to weight it down. So here's a 2 liter bottle. Now right here, all along the top is another row that I poked of holes with the soldering iron. That's where air comes out. Now you've got the neck of the bottle, and there's a hole in the cap. Put the cap back on the bottle, and there's a hole out for air to come out. Okay. Mm-hmm. But in my sump, the neck of the bottle is above the water. Okay. Where the holes are soldered is under the water. So air's coming out still underwater.
Then you're fine.
The K1 down here churning. It's just that the cap is above, there's air, but air's coming out. Obviously it's churning. So
yep, you're good.
You're good to go.
It sounds good to me. It looks good. I loved the design that this guy, I found it on YouTube, and just the way he did it, it was so simple. And it's weighted because of the dollar store glass thing sit in the bottom of the 2 liter. The airline's above it. Then you got your K1. It's going round and round. I turned on, like I said, I have it on the same pump that I put all my other airlines on. And it was like, so I turned it down.
Real fast. Let me show.
I have a question on how fast should your K1 spin? Is there like
hang on, Holly. Holly, before real quick mine, because I just did a really quick video. So because you're saying this guy showed you how easy it is to make, but darn it, I'm telling you my video. I'm just kidding. But this was very easy to make too. Yeah. I'm pulling it out to show you right here. So basically there's K1, it's a 1 liter, it's only a gallon. And I had to let all the water out. And then that.
Yeah, I don't like the upside down though. I like it because it sits right.
Well, can I finish real quick? So the airline goes halfway through and it bubbles up. I have 2 things on the side that stick it to the edge. I did have holes so I had to put holes in there. That's all I wanted. I understand you like your design better. I like mine, so we'll just be at odds.
Okay. Hey guys,
Okay,
I'll get you some because I've been using reactors for years. And my K1 media reactors are actually old Coral Life super skimmers that I cut the innards out of.
We have a video. Yes.
I drilled holes in the sides to release water, etc. And basically what I have now is I have an airline that's inserted through the top that goes all the way down to the bottom before it starts releasing air, which keeps everything in motion. And then the holes that I drilled in the sides release the water.
Yep.
And they're actually, I've been using them for years. I love them. And they're very simple. I'll try to, I'll see if I can't shoot a picture of one and send it out to you guys because they really work well. And they're really.
Cheryl, we made a whole video. I have a whole video. I'll link it when we're done. But yeah, definitely share pictures too. But hang on, let me share Holly's
So
now because
I just sent you, yeah. So this is it.
I
when
share
was
it, ma'am.
cycling.
I'm sharing it. Hang on, here we go, and then you can ask your question. Here we go.
Oh my God, Holly's sharing something fun.
I know it. Okay, here we go. Oh,
So
I don't like that at all. But
so this is when it was cycling in the bucket, right? So see how it's a 2-liter bottle, but it's upright. So it doesn't tip over. You don't have to stick it to anything. It just sits there. And the way you get it to sit there is those little, they come in a little net bag at the dollar store. They're little like glass stones that you use in planters or crafts or whatever. Marbles you could use, whatever, glass. So anyway, you put a handful of them in the bottle after you drill your holes, and they hold the bottle down and stuff doesn't get stuck in it because they're so big that everything flows around it.
Well, now
so
we
when
get...
I made
go ahead.
So when I made the bottle, basically around the base of the 2-liter bottle, you put, the holes with the soldering iron, and they're it's probably about 2 inches up. When you look at a 2-liter bottle, there's a line around the bottom. It's probably about 2 inches above the very bottom of the bottle. So I followed that line with the soldering iron and put all the holes in the bottom. And then you feed the air line. You don't even have to use a soldering iron.
You don't even have to use a soldering iron. All you
but
need
the
to do is
soldering iron was the best advice ever because it was so quick. Like when I shared with my husband, like we could do it with a drill. They said you could use there's all different ways to do it, but the soldering iron is instant. It's all poke, 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 poke. You're done in like 3 minutes. And so
okay, go ahead.
I poked an air line through one of those holes, and then you feed the air line up through the neck of the bottle where the cap is. And then you stick your air stone on there.
Yeah.
And draw it back out so it's down at the bottom. And then you stick all your K1 in through the hole of the bottle, the neck of the bottle.
Well, the thing is, hang
on, let her finish.
You can see where the bubbles are coming out. It's where the bottle goes from being straight to a neck. That's where you put the outgoing holes.
Yes.
And so you can see in this, the bucket was deep enough that the cap was underwater.
Yep.
In my Sump, the cap is not underwater, but the top holes are. So the water's getting out.
So first of all, you're fine as long as, like in my video, as long as you have holes towards the top, letting the water out.
As long as you have holes, you're good to go because then you will get the runoff.
Right.
No, seriously though.
And as long as it stays spinning. Now let's really quickly, Cheryl and Ray, if he's back, let's discuss because Dan and I had a very long conversation about how fast or slow it is. So, and I will throw in really quickly, I still like my design better. Sorry, it doesn't do that bubbling at the top or anything. I don't have any of that. So, but anyways, Cheryl, how fast should K1 spin?
How fast do what?
How fast should your K1 be spinning? Because I noticed mine, I had to turn it down to get it back to this once I put it in the sump because my pump was so powerful. It was like, whoosh.
Yeah, I want it running hard and fast and moving everything around, but I do not want it trying to blow the top off of the system. So I adjust it so it's blowing around really well, but not pushing over the top.
Well, mine has no way of pushing over the top because it can't get there. So is as fast as it could go is the best, or like mine's churning at this speed right now because I adjusted it down, but I have it on that powerful pump I was talking about earlier. And when I first turned it on, it was insanely fast.
Yeah. One thing you could do is drill some more holes below the spout, right? So mine all have holes below water level, and
well,
they blow out.
Mine does. You can't see it here, but the holes are below water level. It's just that there's also a hole at the top, and in the bucket, it was underwater, but in my sump, it's not. The other holes are underwater, but not that one.
I would drill a couple more holes in the top below the black
below the water line.
Yeah. On the sides to help release a little more water and it will improve its efficacy if you give it a little more filtration. In other words, put some on the sides where it starts to turn into the black spot.
Well, let me show you let me share the video of it in the sump and see what you think, because I did one in the sump too.
Okay, and I would just say too that mine runs much slower than that. Because and correct me if I'm wrong, Dan and I had this long conversation about K1 because I was worried about the same thing, Holly. I was like, is it spinning enough?
Yeah, what's the right speed?
Well, hang on, let me finish. And so what he basically told me is the spin is merely to knock against each other and knock detritus off. I'm not saying yours is wrong. I think it's fine, especially if obviously it's cycled and it's cycling, it's working. It's great. I would love deeper conversation about this because in my case, my K1 stopped spinning. My pump wasn't strong enough. And I called Dan, freaked out, spinning anymore. And he said, okay. And I said, well, should I not worry, that something's going to die or it's going to build up detritus? And he said, well, if you can fix the spinning within, a couple days, a week, you're fine because it's still acting like a biological media and holds the nitrifying bacteria and the water's still going through it, even though it's not spinning anymore. And so
you don't have to
sweat it. How fast did it spin? And basically he said, and I showed him mine and he was like, yeah, that's fine. Mm-hmm. I'm sure yours is fine. But he basically said the whole to the spinning and what makes it more beneficial than like Bioball is that it knocks against each other. So as long as it's spinning, period, it's working.
The thing with
gotcha. So I don't need it going a million miles a minute. This is speed. It's probably fine. Yeah, because oh my gosh, it was 10 times this when I played.
Mine barely
powerful. And
mine
so I turned
it down spins. It literally bumps into each other and knocks each other in tumbling motion, but it's not. Yours is fine, but I don't have a video of it ready, but It's
Gotcha.
it
So I don't
barely.
really need to worry about the speed of it. As long as it's going, it's good.
Yes.
It's in the Sump, it's doing this right now. When I first turned it on, it was much more than that. It was
Video.
you couldn't even see it. It was a blur.
Did you send me the video of it in
The
your
thing
song?
is, you have to remember
No,
when
but you know what? I can go make one real quick. If you guys
Yeah.
can talk for a few seconds, I'll make one and then
Absolutely.
share it.
Are
they're
you
easy
kidding
to
me?
build.
We never stop talking. Go make your video.
Go right ahead.
They're
All right.
easy to build. They work very well. And the thing is, don't panic because they're going to work. They work. They do what they were designed to do, which is basically to remove nitrates and nitrites from your tank. And as such, I mean, once I
Thank
get
you
the
too.
cycle, there's nothing to it. I just drop one in, and I occasionally kind of tweak a little bit of water flow or a little bit of airflow. But beyond that, I've got some that I've had going for over 5, 6 years that I have yet to ever clean because they're self-cleaning. I don't have to do anything with them.
So real quick, first of all, I want to say Shyla's been waiting for hours for not hours, but hang on, Holly. Let me speak real quick. So Shyla, I am so glad that the white spot has not grown. So you need to come in one week that you are available, and we'll let you share or send me some pictures or videos or whatever, so we can share that your female's doing well and the spot hasn't grown. And we can go over that again. Second of all, Ray, look at his face, y'all. I'm about to make Ray big. Look at Ray's face.
Ray,
His
can I
face
say
is
something?
spinning. His head is spinning. He's saying these women never shut up.
No,
In
one
the
thing real
following
quick,
weeks,
Ray.
hang on. I'll talk to the ladies
Hold on.
about this because it's all of us ladies that want to keep going. We're gonna
Ray,
do
this
some
came from John Doe.
chill.
Ray.
Hang on. We're gonna do some mic magic so that we're not all talking over each
Okay.
other in the future. Go ahead.
This is important. Okay. Ray, this came from John Doe. Ray touched me in my dreams.
Cheryl, no, Cheryl, stop
I
it.
was
No,
crying.
I've already deleted that. You can only see it in Restream. Please do not comment on that, please. It was spam. I commented. I'm not mad. Sorry if I seem mad, but I don't want that said on the station because it's not, obviously. And it was a jerk who I deleted from the channel and from Restream. You can see it because you're in the Restream chat, but nobody else can see that anymore. Promise. But that was a jerky thing to do for sure. But anyhow, Ray, you okay over there?
I'm okay.
Okay, just
So
making
that
sure.
video, I think, just
It
came.
gets frustrating.
I know, and if I seem frustrated, it's definitely not because I don't want to hear everything that everybody's saying. Hell, I want more people to jump in and talk about seahorses. We just got to find a way to not talk over each other. And there's a delay too. So like if Holly's talking and I think she's done talking and I start talking and she wasn't done, then
Holly is never done
and Cheryl
talking.
just keep talking. Just kidding.
That's
Cheryl.
what I'm
We
talking
love
about,
having you
Cheryl.
back. But we're gonna figure it out and we're not gonna have it anymore. Holly, you said you sent me the video.
Okay, so yeah, the video just came through on our Wine Wednesday messenger.
Let's share it and then you can talk while it's
so you can tell me, you guys can tell me what you think. If you think I need more holes, if you think that's good.
You need more.
Good. Oh, I should probably hit play. Here we go.
Yeah, let's play it first.
That's fine.
My only concern thing is you need water coming down on those bile balls to keep them moving around.
I've got a bunch of airlines in there now. But so that's like the second chamber of my sump. So stuff, it flows into that. So in the first chamber, I've got my filter sock and my skimmer, right? And then it's got baffles like we've talked about. So then it goes into here, and that's where the bio balls are and the K1 now. And I stuck a bunch of airlines in there. So there's flow, but do you think I should turn it up like the airlines, or because
I
that's
wouldn't
the
turn off
only
the
way
air
I'm
line.
going to get it bouncing around. But they've been that way. I mean, this is 4 years old that the
Yeah.
balls have been in there. So
Do you have a filter tray that goes over that continues to wet the bio balls, or are they just kind of stuck in
no,
suspended
they're
animation?
sitting in there. I have some because there's chambers where you can stick stuff in between. So there's also one that has like a sponge in it that's partly wet and partly dry, where stuff flows
Right.
through that and then goes to where the pump is. And originally the sump I had before this was way tiny, but it was what they call like a trickle filter, I guess, where the
Right.
water trickles
Yep.
down over the
Right.
balls and stuff. But the newer sumps, they aren't that way unless you put them above the sponge in those little narrow spaces. And there wasn't enough room in there for as many bio balls as I want. So this thing's chock full of bio balls, basically.
Okay.
Why?
And there's air lines running into it.
Ray wants to know why.
If
Just
it's not in the
because-
water, sorry.
What,
so
Ray?
there's
If it's not in the water, it's not doing any good.
Well,
well,
it's full.
those are the ones on top. There's like probably geez, that whole chamber's full of bio balls, honestly.
That's what I'm saying.
I
Why?
can't tell you how many, but they're just in there. Because that's what I had when I moved it from the other sump. I put them all in that chamber, and that's just the way I've had it for years. Why I couldn't tell you other than that's what I read to do when I set it up.
I don't think there's bio balls.
No, there's
Well,
nothing
the
wrong with
idea
fireballs.
was originally the way I've been told they're supposed to do is supposed to be a combination of wet and dry, right?
Yep. Trickle.
And so not all of mine are part wet and dry. There's a lot of them underwater. It's just like surfaces for stuff to grow. Like it's just my biofilter.
Do you? Here's
But
a question.
I've
though,
been
Holly.
doing it that way since I started doing saltwater tanks because that's what I had to use.
Right.
do.
And that's that's what's interesting to me because typically this definitely know this method. I've used this method and it's typically used in freshwater. So I get it. That's all what we had to use in saltwater. And I know people who use it in saltwater. And the question I have for you is, do you clean them ever? Do you ever shake them up?
I
or
haven't.
clean them out?
No, I haven't. And that's another question I have is how do you clean inside the sump? Like there's stuff in there. So do you just do like the tank and wipe it and vacuum it out and then add more water, or should I not touch it? Or
Oh my God, there was silence. Anybody else have thoughts?
like, what do you do? Because I'm experiencing this on my grow out tank. Is there's starting to be stuff inside the sump that I want to clean, but I'm like, well, but is that part of what I need for the biofilter? Do I not want to get rid of it and clean it, or what do I do?
Okay, Seahorse Corner says, I use BioBalls. I'm putting it up, but also other stuff like ceramic. So
Same here.
Heather,
So
wait,
that's
hang on, Holly.
Holly.
Hang on. Seahorse Corner. Do you clean
Same thing
or move the BioBalls to make sure detritus isn't building? That's the one thing that I stopped using them because they read that the buildup can end up K1 moves, so you're knocking off the detritus.
Yeah.
Other stuff works in different ways, but with the BioBalls, and I have used them in a tank, there's nothing wrong with it. But I would think maybe once a month, whenever when you're doing your water change or something, maybe pull some out and rinse them off, or even your own hand or arm or whatever you use in the tank.
Siphon on the crap on the bottom, you think? Like, because there's detritus,
definitely
like she process. So siphon it, like when you clean the tank, siphon that off.
Absolutely. I would
Because I
siphon the
have not just bio balls. I have a bunch of sponges in there, and ceramic media is all in there.
well,
It's chock full of stuff.
I would absolutely clean the crap off the bottom. Absolutely. You don't want that built. Not you could if it built up enough but it's just sitting there adding to the organics. You know what I mean?
Mhm,
Sense?
mhm. Yeah, yeah.
I'm going to make a quick statement. Bioballs damn near killed me
Uh-oh.
because had tanks. I was pulling out the bioballs. I was redoing filtration. I was rebuilding. It was getting late. I headed into the house. Remembered I left my tools outside. Ran outside to grab my tools. Stepped on a plastic bag of bioballs. Went over the railing on my porch and landed in a big evergreen. That's my history with bioballs.
Well,
So
let's not
I
ask-
like that Heather stuff. She keeps her bio balls and I have these bags that you toss into the washing machine and you put your pantyhose or swimsuits or whatever in there.
What's a
So they're like
pantyhose?
a mesh bag. I have mesh bags. So yeah, you can keep them in mesh bags instead of just in the water. And then, so then you can clean out the sump, like siphon, just like you do the tank, sounds like. So you get all the loose crap out of there.
Yeah.
And then your bio balls will stay cleaner, but it's still the biofilter.
I don't use bioballs.
I mean, even Aquachar has the same thing. Aquachar, you don't have to clean every water change. It starts off working like a carbon media, but it's not carbon, it's better. Then it ends up working like a biological media, but the advice for that is, after 6 months or months, swish it in tank water. And what Heather said was, I just toss them in knee highs and clean around them. And if they look dirty, I swish them. Perfect. And then she said, let's just go through what she said really quick. Mine stay in knee high pantyhose or media bags. I do my water changes from the sump. That's what you were talking about, Holly. Good. And then, but even with your case, you could pull out just some of it from the bottom, clean the bottom, and rinse in tank water. That's a good suggestion.
I could just
Okay, wait a minute.
Not by a bioball. Okay.
Oh my God! As tough as Cheryl is, she was almost taken out by a bioball.
Yeah. Yeah.
And last thing from Heather, she said, I do my sumps like be honest. So there you go. Maybe it does kind of work like Aquachar.
Yeah, it's time
you
to
got to
do
clean your
that.
socks and such.
Because I've never done that.
Hang on, Holly. Hang on. Let me finish.
Seriously, Holly.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. When it comes to bio balls.
You want some more bio balls? I have a ton of bio balls from going back years and years ago that I have not touched. They're clean. They've been thoroughly cleaned before I put them up. And I have bags of them if you need some more.
Well, I sure as heck don't. I have plenty of them, as you can see.
Seriously.
That thing is chock full of bio balls. Well, both my sumps. But that tank is going on 5 years now.
Yeah.
Yep. The first sump I ever got. The first sump I ever got. The first sump I ever
or if anybody else needs any bio balls.
Guys, come on.
I haven't thrown them away. I just, they're still here. And someday somebody's going to come along and remind me why I fell off my porch and damn near busted my butt when I tripped on the bio balls.
I was just trying to say the first sump I ever bought for a saltwater tank was the Holly was talking about. I'm sure if you're into aquariums, you know what we're talking about. And it worked while it wasn't seahorses, but I don't think there's anything wrong with it. If it's working, it's working. Definitely, I think that you got some good advice from Heather tonight, Holly, in that, just
for sure.
Push out and
Yeah. Clean yourself. But no, the thing is, because you got to realize my first saltwater tank was in 1986, 87, something like. So I'm old. A lot of the stuff I know about is really old school.
Yeah.
And so I go with what I know, from, and then I was like, why are you doing that? Well, that was the way we used to do it
Right.
many, many years. So Ray said, why are you doing that? Well, because it's the only way I know, but
There's nothing wrong with old
you
school.
learn as you go, and that's how I have the K1 now, is because I learned about it. I'm like, oh, I want to use that. And I added it. But I mean, maybe because of that, I can eventually eliminate the bio balls.
Yeah.
How many 2-liter bottles of K1 will take the place of those
Well,
bio balls when I have
first
them
of all, you have to
know.
remember, bio balls are responsible for conversion of nitrites to nitrates. K1 media actually converts
K1 Media does all of it, Cheryl.
to
Hmm.
uh,
Hmm.
basic. What am I thinking of? I'm getting tired. Converts to
Well,
uh,
nitrates
phosphates.
eventually
K1 Media
does all of
actually
it.
handles all of it. The K,
Yeah.
hang on, guys. The K1 Media can act all media. It will handle the bacteria that converts ammonia to nitrite and the bacteria that converts nitrite to nitrate. K1
Yeah.
can actually handle all of it. So,
Yes, they can.
Holly, I don't know the
But
answer
isn't
to
bio balls the same thing?
Oh my
but
gosh, you guys,
bigger?
wait. Hang on. Can I just let me finish? The K1 can act as your main and only filtration. I don't advise it because, as we've all said multiple times, the more filter better, right? You have need mechanical like a skimmer in addition. And I personally am in the tank. Holly got smart, removed her rock. She's doing K1 and BioBall. I don't think there's anything wrong with it if it's working. Maybe switch BioBalls, as Heather suggested, is good. But again, works. The only thing with BioBalls is, I think what Heather's kind of getting to, and what I was thinking, is that if you don't, eventually it will be a problem. But as Holly said, this has been 5 years where she hasn't done a thing to them. So
Well, the thing is, they're much slower to cycle. They are more difficult to maintain water stability, because you have to really watch your careful flow because it's a trickle filter system. And above all else, if you step on them on your front porch, you're going over the railing and going to bust your fanny.
I guess you could use them to make a ball pit for kids or something.
sorry,
They do work.
there's a lot going by.
for
Sorry,
years.
go ahead.
And I have a ton of them. If anybody needs some, I'll be more than willing to ship them to anybody because I really am not going to use them anymore.
Well, I see what Seahorse, and that's why I switched to K1, because to me, K1's the same thing but more surface area. And it's tumbling, and you get, because it's tinier. Whereas the bio balls, if you did the same thing with bio balls, it would work exactly the same. The problem is you'd need a container that was 6 feet tall.
Exactly.
To do it.
Yeah.
And that's what I see when I saw the K1, because I'm familiar with the bio balls years ago. I want to say 2008 or so was when I started seeing stuff about K1, but I didn't know how to get it or where to get it, because back then the internet stuff was fairly new. So I've had it in my mind that I wanted that for a long time, and I know the idea of it, but to me the idea is the same thing as bio balls, only better. Because they're the same thing. They're little balls. But instead of a ball this big, you got a ball teeny, this big. So there's more surface area. You can fit them in a smaller space, and you can get the air through them better than you can through.
It's also the shape. It's also the shape.
Yeah.
They make the shape is perfect.
Yeah.
They actually
the thing
made for. Hang on, Cheryl. Hang on. made for water filtration, like not for aquariums, for actual water
Well,
filtration.
it's for processing sewer waste.
Right. So
The
shape and
residual
everything about it is designed for this purpose, and it does
Yeah.
work. You don't have to use it, but
Mhm.
go ahead, Cheryl.
It was first developed basically in sewage treatment plants
Mhm.
as a final treatment prior to releasing water back into the main stream flow, so to speak.
Mhm.
And it was found to be truly effective and very inexpensive.
Absolutely.
And even now to this day, it's still very inexpensive. I started using it. Dan Underwood was the one that got me started on it.
Yep.
He literally called me and said, "I got this thing you've got to try out." And I'm leaving company property at USAA. I pull over. I got security staring at me like, "What in the hell are you doing parked there?" And he's telling me all this stuff about K1 Media, and I'm going back years ago. And I figured, well, if he was that excited about it, I guess I better find a way to do
Yeah,
a little
anything Dan
practice.
says we're on board. Hey guys, listen real quick. Ladies, real quick. I was just gonna say I'm giving the 5-minute warning, and I do need to talk to you guys for 10 seconds after we end, but
5,
5-minute hang on.
3.
Any announcements? Anything you want to talk about? You go. I'm gonna shut up.
I'm just saying, and I started experimenting with it and built some K1 media reactors and experimented, and I was really impressed with how effective it was, and it sold me on it.
Yeah.
Bioballs are like way off in left field compared to what K1
Ancient history.
But I still want to say this system has worked for Holly for 5 years. If you're using it and it works,
it can work.
And if you took something from this app now, maybe clean them, and you don't want to clean because I think that's what Heather was insinuating. She only cleans them like every 6 months, not every water change, because you don't want to kill the bacteria. So maybe every 6 months you pull a scoop out, and don't wash them in tap water or anything. Rinse them in tank water that you've gotten rid of, just to get the detritus off. Clean the bottom maybe, but if it works, it works. That's it. I just have to keep saying that because I don't want anybody to ever think, oh, I have to go change my whole system because I said so. No.
Hey,
but go ahead.
Don't kid yourself. I have photos of my tanks set up on bioball filters.
Yeah.
And I'm going back a number of years ago.
Just don't let them kill you like they almost did Cheryl.
Yeah, really. But my point is, I have used them. I found that there were systems that had a quicker response and were more effective and more reliable, which is why I've ultimately backed off on using the bioballs. That's just my opinion.
Mhm.
Sorry, I was asking Seahorse Corner when she's coming back. Talk Sea Shed. Sorry, but anyhow, anything else from you tonight? And don't forget, guys, I just asked her to talk and then I interrupted. I'm sorry. I'm so terrible. But guys, don't forget when you come, even if we're talking about disease or feeding or whatever, if you have a question, or Shyla, like you want to give an update, that's as a community. We're here for you guys, not just us. So that's all I had to say. But Holly, anything else from you?
Nope. I was just sharing. I switched over the tank, so got to watch it, next few days and see how it does, see how all my tank readings are, all the water perimeters are, and see if it went
How many
smoothly.
gallons?
Make sure nobody gets stuck in the new decoration.
Yeah. Right. And that's something that Ray said that made sense to me, is that when you're doing any changes like what you've done, Holly, or in his case, reading the reed eye in small containers with green water, he used Chloramax. I use Prime. There's a product that's really good too. But have something on hand and either use it or have it on hand to use in case problem, for sure.
Yeah, I've got Prime, and then yeah, so I'm just gonna watch next few days and see how it goes. But they were happy about it. They were cool. They spent the day in a bucket while with their favorite
They
hit while
were
I
happy
was
they
doing
spent their day in
everything.
the bucket.
And
You're
then
funny.
once everything was good and the water was, pretty clear, I put him back in. And Dandy was the only one that had a traumatic experience because everything's traumatic for him. So he
Right.
he played dead.
Oh,
Everybody else picked him up and I put him in, but him when I got him out of the bucket, he got scared and curled himself in a little ball, looked like a
Yeah.
millipede in a little circle. He played dead. I set him gently down in the new house and kind of woke up, and then
yeah.
he went in. He found one of the caves and went in there for a little while, and then he came out, and basically they were all fine. They looked around. They had some familiar things in there,
Yeah.
so they noticed that. Then they saw all their friends were there. They saw all the seahorses made it. So they're, oh, you're here too. Okay. And then they had a blast. They went exploring and they were all over the tank looking at stuff and looking in things. And then it came to be time to eat. I fed them a little later than usual. I gave them time to explore. And then once I shut off the pumps and the turkey baster, everybody was to the dish. So they were comfortable by then.
Good.
They ate their dinners
Good.
and then they settled down. They went all back because their favorite hitches made it back in there. So they all went to their favorite places and were napping by the time, I came on for Wine Wednesday. Everybody
Yeah.
was settled and napping. So
My favorite
I think
thing. Go
Your
ahead.
new
Sorry.
tank.
I was just going to say my favorite thing is that, and before next week, you should send me like a full tank picture or video because it's beautiful. And there are so many ways to do this. We've said this before, but you can do an artificial tank with no sand to raise seahorses, and it can still be people would be attracted to the second they walk in your house because it's beautiful. So
Yes.
good job is all I'm saying.
And I do have a bunch. I have a bunch. I'm going to make an album of pictures because I did take a lot of pictures and a lot of video of the whole process. I have videos from parts of it doing it. So yeah, I'll be sharing those on my
How
Facebook.
many
So
how
you
many
can.
gallons how many gallons is your new tank?
Well, it's not a new tank. It's the same old tank. I just switched it out. It's a
Ah,
55. It's a 55 gallon. I spent hours on the Coraline Algae. Oh, I hate that stuff. See, when I first Coraline Algae, I was like, "Oh, that's beautiful. I want it on all the rocks and stuff." Well, it grows everywhere,
oh,
and you can't. I had trouble reaching it. I I mean, because I had the top off the tank. It's got a big wood hood over the top of the tank. So today, part of the process was taking that off, and then I had to sit up on the top of the couch with scrapers
oh
and bags of
man.
vinegar, and yeah, so it was a lot. I didn't get all of the Coraline Algae out, but I got most of it, so it actually looks pretty good now. But yeah, it was hard. It was not easy. And so it's a 55 gallon tank, and the sump size, they tell you a certain gallon size, but that's not the amount of water that fits
Right.
in it.
Yeah.
So I want to say the sump's probably 15 to 20 gallons, but the tank itself is 55.
You know that you can go out and buy, and probably even on, well, you don't have a local reef club there. I could
Mhm.
pick up 29-gallon tanks in pristine conditions for $10.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I literally use those and turn them all into my sumps.
Mhm.
So I
Mhm.
had $10 and some tough work, basically.
Mhm.
Okay, so you guys, what you're seeing is unfortunately what my significant other did with my old reef tank.
Oh,
Started. Instead, he's using the light to grow vegetables in the house. I just thought I'd show you.
Well, sounds
he's
like
dead.
I have my old grow out tank is outside right now, the 85 gallon. It's acrylic. It's got a split in it, but Scott's going to repurpose it. And I don't know who's going to live in it or what it's going to be yet, but it's outside right now.
It's got
Well,
plants in it.
I
And I have some other
completely
tanks.
hang on. I completely intend to restart my reef because I miss the coral. I miss the reef. I still love my seahorses and their tanks, but I miss the coral and reef. We're gonna move, so I'm like setting it up now would be stupid just to move them.
Yeah, yeah.
But soon
Oh,
because I will be having a reef again soon. But yeah, he's grown all sorts of different ways. He's Mr. Man. Okay, that's all. Just wanted to show you guys.
and yeah, I
Right.
know I saw Heather had a tank for sale, but she's in Pennsylvania and I'm in California. And I'm like, but my
Minor
husband was saying
details.
today, he's all, don't you wish you would have switched out the goldfish tank? Because we have a goldfish tank that's 60 gallon, it's glass. And he is saying, don't you wish you would have used that for the seahorses instead? But the only
Right.
thing is, then I would have needed to add the overflow boxes because it's not the thing about the acrylic tank is it's got a built-in
Yep.
overflow box. It's drilled. None of my other tanks are, you know, so that's kind of convenient, you know, right there. That's awesome. But yeah, I really wish I could have just taken this tank away and put a brand new tank in its place, but I had to deal with what I had. And yeah, cleaning it up was not fun. It took me
No,
hours.
I
And
know.
there's still coral and algae in there. There's stuff I can't get off, you
You
know.
could do what I did. Took my old oceanic tanks that were reef ready, drilled from the bottom with overflow boxes built in. Took out the overflows, put in standpipes and sleeves, and then turned them into specifically seahorse tanks. And
Mm-hmm. Oh, look
I
at you.
think anybody else
My
that
mother-in-law's kitties staying
is
with us
convinced
for a week.
that I lost my mind. But they're really
It's a lot of work. And I did want to mention, and I'll do a post. You guys, when you see it, please share it for me because I haven't been on social media enough lately. You know that. But I prepare to move into a bigger house. I've got like I don't think I'm going to keep the 90 gallon SCA. SCA, yeah. It's thick. It's expensive. It's great. So I'll be selling some of this stuff because I'll repurchase when I get there and house. So when you see those posts, please
so
help me
where
share.
when and where are you
Indiana is where I'm
moving?
at. Wait, with the SCA tank, I'm telling whoever comes and whoever buys it has to transport it because that
God, yeah, you can't ship
when you get
stuff
it to
like
bed,
this. It costs a fortune. So yeah, there's no way for me to get tanks from you guys because you're so far away from me.
Are you saying the
right. Well, and
DSA tank?
the other thing I would, if I have a friend, if you're my friend and you need it, we can work something out, right? I'm not trying to make money off this. I'm just saying I can't keep them. I mean, this 90 tank was perfect for growing adolescent. It was a trade. So when I had my reef all set up and beautiful, I traded some coral and some things for this tank because I wouldn't have bought it because it's like I don't do nice 2.5 inch. It's not 2.5 inch, but thick glass. It's great, but it wasn't necessary. You know what I'm saying? I just needed,
Yeah.
and somebody offered
Yeah.
me a trade. So at this point, if I had a friend who was in need, we could talk, or I might try to sell it or something because I'm not going to take it with me because I could reset it up cheaper and, in the same situation. But it was my first drilled tank. But
I have four tanks built by that company. and they were the ones that actually originally built the old oceanic tanks.
Yeah.
And depending on the tank, if you look at the bottom, it has the name and employee number of the person that built that particular tank.
Wow. That's really cool.
That's
And I was going to say too, if I can't get rid of it or sell it or whatever, hell, I will put it in storage because it's an amazing tank. They are great tanks. I mean, they are.
I've got two of their tanks.
Yeah, my one that my display tank is pretty awesome. It's acrylic, and the background is blue. It was just made that way. I got lucky,
Nice.
but I inherited it from a friend of mine that passed away, and he was using it as a freshwater tank. But it has like I said, it's drilled. It has a built-in overflow. It's thick. It's not like the one that I had for the grow out tank where the seam split because the whole thing is molded and it's like I said, it's covered. It's got a built on thing. Cover is acrylic also, so it's got cutouts in the top, which makes it really hard to clean, but it also makes it structurally sound because the whole thing is molded. But yeah, it's hard to clean because the top is like not completely open like a glass tank would be. It's actually got two sections that you can reach into and clean, not the whole thing's open. So it's got advantages and disadvantages.
I have 3 oceanic 58-gallon oceanic tanks. And basically when they shut down, they all got back together again and opened up the DSA tanks. And I have 2 reef-ready DSA tanks. Now, these tanks...
You mean SCA?
Deep Sea Aquatics.
Or is there a DSA? Anyways, go ahead.
I'm sorry?
Nothing, go ahead.
Anyway, basically they're built by the same guys that built the oceanic tanks. And you can look on the bottom of the tank. It says, do not drill tempered glass. And it gives the name and employee number of the person that built that tank. Think about that.
That's dedication right there.
Very cool.
I love
and Heather said her 135-gallon is 22 years old. She trusts it more than any of the new tanks. They don't make it like the old ones. Is that not true for everything? Phones, cars, they expect you to replace them.
Yeah.
Don't make
my
them.
58-gallon
tank or 60-gallon that has the goldfish in it right now.
Yes.
We've had that tank since 2000. I want to say, was it 2022 now? 22 years old. Yeah, that's the one my husband said, don't you wish you had used that for the Seahorse?
Well,
but it's not drilled,
right.
It's a regular tank.
And what I would say though is SCA, and I'm not trying to sell it to you guys, I'm just telling you, the 90 SCA is the nicest tank so I think that now for quality, whereas it used to be companies just wanted to provide quality, but now you got companies that'll just shove you off on, if you want it cheap, it's going to be the SCA.
Well, everything's
hang on. The SCA tanks are expensive as heck, but I'm telling you, I'll show pictures. The glass is like that thick. It's nut, and that thing will never come apart. I'm telling you. So if you're willing to pay for it.
It's like my DSA tanks. Every one of them have beveled edges, so there's no sharp corners. They're totally smooth.
Yep.
And they call them their pro tanks.
Mm-hmm.
And they were built by the same guys that built the old oceanic tanks.
Yep.
That's part of what made my acrylic tank so hard to is that the corners are rounded. It's formed. So it's a round shape. So scraping the stuff off is hard.
Doesn't work.
I got to run real quick. I'll be right back.
Okay. Actually, what I was going to say is, let's go ahead and, I'll wait till Holly gets back. But when Holly gets back, we're going to do our cheers, because we're going on 2.5 hours. I keep saying,
Because I need to go back to bed
never
because I'm
works.
not supposed to be up this late with my bum eye.
Okay, no, you take care of you, Cheryl. We're so
Did
glad
you
you're back.
did you see? Wait. Did you see what I posted earlier
What's that?
about how I was having my eye surgery, and the surgeon comes in, and he's talking to me, and he goes, "I see you're wearing hearing aids. Can you hear me?" I said, "Well, actually, male bass voices I have trouble hearing, but if you could talk higher in a female voice, I would be able to hear you better. It would make much better for me." And he stops and looks like at me like I'm a total complete moron or something. I mean, he was just blown away. And I burst out laughing. I said, "That was a joke." And he goes, "I've never had a patient going in for eye surgery in a matter of minutes that could crack a joke."
Tough
And
cookie, Cheryl.
I told my primary care physician. She burst out laughing. She goes, she knew immediately that she knows me. She's known me for years. She goes, "I know you. I can so see you doing that." And here's this major surgeon who I just knocked out of the water.
Yep,
It was
and that's
pretty
so
funny.
funny. And as you see, guys, here, but that's why Cheryl's been away. She loves coming to Wine Wednesday, but deal with some stuff. But I'm so glad that not only has it worked out for you, but also that you were able to her and through it. So kudos to
Hey,
you.
I'm doing great. My vision's virtually perfect, and my surgeon was great, and everybody has been fantastic.
It's awesome.
Love
Okay,
them.
guys. All right. So listen, I'm going to hit Dan up like when we do an Ask Seahorse Source Part 3.
You're gonna hit Dan?
But I'm gonna get him back in here to the third portion that deals with peroxide and fry and all that good stuff. And
I was gonna say you can't.
no,
You
hang
can't
on. What's
Dan.
probiotic? Hang on, Cheryl. Hang on 1 second. Just let me give my ending spiel here. So we'll get Dan back in here to do Ask Seahorse Source. The difference between enriched brine shrimp and copepods with him here, and of course we'll try in future episodes. But we want to get Heather back to talk about the sea shed. We still have a couple of guests on the list that we got to schedule, and lots more to come. Watch for my char chamber video. Again, you get those from Robert King. I'll put a link in the description. But as you see the video, as I do a comparison with fry tanks, you'll see how aquachar and these char chambers are really excellent. Definitely, we're so up with Holly's updates on and yeah, I think that's it for me. Oh, don't forget, as soon as I post about the hang on, the seahorse and pipefish and women reefing, make sure you register because it's going to be fun. Cheryl, say your last two words. 2 P's.
I'm sorry.
We're ending it, so say goodbye.
Okay. Bye, Holly Seahorse.
Cheers.
And Holly, did you have to say? I don't want to cut anybody off.
Hey,
Yeah.
Holly, stay safe and do well.
You too, Cheryl.
Amen.
It's nice to have you back.
So I'll say cheers. Cheryl, pretend.
Cheers.